Ah, another sample of rare organic material on Voltaic, otherwise known as paper. It is taking me too long. Every minute I spend searching his house runs the risk of someone walking in and finding me. I would bring his journals to the Tusk, but I'm afraid he will notice them gone. Already I'm afraid of what he knows, of what his wife might know. She almost caught me last time. I had linked directly into the sunroom. I was walking toward his study when I heard footsteps coming down the hall. She was talking with someone. She was laughing, and for one heart-wrenching moment, I thought she was Tamra. Then I remembered my Tamra is dead. I left her to die when I went after the brothers. I told her to go to the reef, to take our 2 girls there and hide. I took the necklace she gave me to remember her, and I told her, "Oh God, Tamra, I told you it would all be okay. For years I prayed my words were not a lie, that you had made it to the reef, that you were tending the ailing lattice roots. By the weaving, Tamra, how I prayed." Until I opened his machine. I saw Narayan through his shield, and even though the barrier kept me locked inside, I knew the lattice tree had died. Narayan can't survive without the tree. No one can be alive outside his shield. Standing in Atris's house, knowing that my wife and children were dead, I felt the fog roll toward me again. And as much as I wanted to give in to its numbness, I couldn't. I couldn't let Atris's wife find me standing there. Somehow, I waded through the haze. I made my way to the study, found the book that would take me back to Jananan. It was right where I had left it, where they might not see it fall. I placed my hand on the panel, heard the door behind me opening, and then the study disappeared. She almost saw me. I know it. It was much too close this time. If the book hadn't been where I had left it. Next time, I'll bring a book from one of his other ages with me, just in case it happens again. Well, that was a nice break. Ready to get back to this puzzle now? Here we are at station number 3. What a tease this puzzle is. And there's the dunny symbol for 4, as you might expect. I know the top and bottom tracks look right, but since we've moved the middle one so much now, you have to wonder if that's not the only one that's wrong. And we've looped back to the entrance, so this is the last station, number 5. Close to fitting the top one at all. Ooh, it fit the bottom one. This is very tiring. Okay, something's really messed up here. There has to at least be a gap to match the top one. Okay, it's about time. I think we have good enough reason to believe this is the only large gap up here. So these 2 tracks must be correct, at least relative to each other. So either both of these need to be moved together, or just the bottom one alone. And that's anyone's guess. It probably would have been faster if I tested the bottom track first, right? Oops. Oh well, too late now. Man, this isn't even close. You can tell each time I hit the middle button, it's gonna take a few more hits at least. Inconceivable! When will the madness end? Okay, there is a solution. Good. And now the windows have shut, probably because it's now dangerous to stick our hands inside. Yeah, check this out. These solenoids are really cooking now. Let's take a look at this from higher up, try to figure out how this thing works. Also, look at these wires coming out of the doorway here. Is electricity coming into the room through them, or out from the room? Well, if you follow the bottom wire and trace it around the room, you can see it's powering up all the lights, ending with this one right here. Well, that one's burned out, but the point remains the same. Electricity is coming into the room through these wires. While the bottom wire powers up the lights, the other 5 wires are all connected to this ring in the center of the room. By the way, that kind of looks like a door of some sort up there, doesn't it? Anyway, this ring is then connected to the 5 solenoids around the top of the cylinder. These solenoids have been strategically placed halfway between each pair of circuit windows. And I'll explain why in a moment, but first I'd like to clarify something about this cylinder. From this spot, we can see over the top of the cylinder, so some of the circuit strips are visible. This should clear up some possible confusion when we were looking at them through the windows. We were not adjusting small wiring right in our face. We were actually adjusting large wiring that took up the entire cylinder, and the visible section was on the opposite side. In fact, you can see the 3 tracks from the outside as well. But there's one other thing that would have been really nice to know while solving this, though it's almost impossible to notice when it's scrambled. You can see, at least partially, that the circuit strips have been partitioned into 5 separate circuits going around the cylinder. In fact, if we could look through the circuit windows now, which we can't, we would see that the correct solution has no circuit wiring on the far left side of any of the windows. The end result is 5 separate circuits leading down from the solenoids through the cylinder and underneath this chamber. But then where does it go? We can't see the wiring. Well, I can hazard a guess. Look at these monstrosities around the edge of the room. What are they, electric springs? No, those would be coils. In fact, these are giant electromagnets. And there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pairs of electromagnets around the room. This adds a whole new meaning to the numbering system, doesn't it? For example, this 1 does not just refer to the window, but it also refers to the solenoid, the circuitry wiring, and the pair of electromagnets on the opposite side of the room. So those numbers would go around counterclockwise as well. This would be electromagnet pair number 2, this would be number 3, etc. Now, if the current is flowing underneath the chamber, then I would assume that only these lower magnets are receiving electricity at the moment. But you can see the upper magnets have been inverted, and you might be familiar with what happens when like poles of magnets are pressed against each other. Those 6 input wires are still visible there on the right, in case you want to trace them back to their power source. Not surprisingly, they go right into the wall here, which is about where the crank for that turbine gear is. In fact, there's a generator at the base of the gear that's converting the kinetic energy of the gear into electricity. Wow, this diagram's almost fully lit up. And now the energy flow chart is starting to make sense. We've already figured out everything starts at the water wheel, which is sending energy to this location right here. But now that we've been there, we know that pentagon represents the electromagnet chamber. Last time we were here, the circuit inside the cylinder was broken, so the energy flow stopped there. But now that we fixed it, we can see it's now sending energy towards all the other locations on this age. Though there appears to still be a technical difficulty with this one. That's because sombreros do not conduct electricity. No. Actually, you can see it represents the small island at the start. So I guess if we went over there even now, the door on that building still wouldn't open. But then there's this other light that's been conspicuously placed beneath the small island. Hard to tell what it is just looking at it, but considering how it fits the other icon like a puzzle piece, I'd say it represents those lower magnets in the chamber. And finally there's this other lit up icon that looks like a snake. Have we seen anything like that before? Well, I guess that depends on how good your memory is. Perhaps heading in this direction might give you a clue, maybe. Notice the music changed when we solved the electromagnet puzzle. Apparently this happens when you solve any two of the main puzzles on this age. So, have you figured out where we're going yet? No? Man, I gotta tell you everything, don't I? Well, you still got like 10 seconds to figure it out, I guess. Alright, here's the elevator with the little swirly-doo in it, so according to that diagram, it should work now. This path is pretty straightforward. Except, right here it crosses the airship cable. In fact, the cable is directly attached to this gantry here. The gantry features one single glorified lever. Well, it's good to know that gate won't be a problem anymore. But the airship still didn't move forward, probably because it's still deflated, right? So, our next task will be to find a location with plenty of hot air. No, we're not going all the way to Congress. Ooh, sneaky. I see it all so clearly now, so clear without the fog to sweep it away. How the young men in the village don't want to listen to the elders, how they stand together at the back of the room, a growing knot of anger twisting inside them. "Why should we abide by your rules, old men?" they scream. "You have no life inside you left to live. You gave it up decades ago to the tree." Tamra wants to take the children home. She doesn't like the way the tempers are rising. "Do something, Savidro," she whispers. "Tell them to stop shouting and make them listen. Tell them..." "What, my love? Tell them what? That their young lives do not belong to them alone? That our people are meant to be slaves to our world?" Cirrus and Achenar can see the confusion they're creating. I catch them looking at faces, measuring which men are most dissatisfied. Later, they will approach these men in secret. They will urge the malcontents to boycott our rituals. They will prey on their youth and dissatisfaction, and the young men will begin forming gangs. They will throw off our traditions, rise against the elders, and follow the brothers. Riots will start, and the tree will be neglected. Oh, Tamra, it's all so obvious now, but why couldn't I see it at the time? Every lie the brothers told, every whisper made to put themselves in power, and when our world started collapsing around us, why didn't I see how Cirrus and Achenar didn't care? They never believed the truth behind our traditions. They never understood the work we had to do. They only knew the time had come to leave. And when they did, they left their linking book behind, knowing I would use it to chase after them. They lured me to this world, tied me up, and left me to die here. Because I didn't stop them when I should have.